Hi, this is Jan with Jan's Jewelry Supplies. Welcome to another soldering video. This video is for Starter Kit 1, which is for 4 very large pendants, and you will also have some other supplies. The first item is the heat gun, and there will be 20 feet of 300-degree solder wire. And there will also be a helping hand, which is also referred to as a third hand. Also included are some safety glasses, and a mask. You will also need a few items that are not in the kit. A tile is the first thing that you will need. This is a 16-inch tile. You can use an 8-inch tile. Also, you will need some Play-Doh or something to set your pieces down in so that they don't move. Also, any kind of craft dough will work. This is a kit that we sell on the website, and you'll only need 2 of the items in here. The side cutters and needle nose pliers. Also, this kit comes with round nose, bent nose, and flat nose. You will also need a rolling pin to roll out the Play-Doh. This will give you a flat surface to lay down your stones and settings. And I'm going to go ahead and start showing you how to set the stones. I use my non-dominant hand to hold the setting and my dominant hand to set the stone inside of the setting. And then I just use the sides of my pliers to go and fold the prongs down. You can use the jaw of your pliers, however it will mar the back of the settings if you do that. There are some tools on the market for setting stones, but I have not found any good tools for the shaped stones. There's really only tools for the smaller stones. With these settings, you can also use pliers that have nylon jaws so that they don't mar the settings. I preset all of my stones before I solder. This is just a personal preference. If you don't want to preset your stones, then you need to make sure you leave plenty of room between the settings because the stones are actually larger than the settings. Okay, here are the supplies for the 4 pendants. They will come individually bagged, and also there will be some extra supplies within the kits for you to play around with. Okay, this is the first one. This large flower. And here's the butterfly. And then we've got a large navette pendant and a smaller navette pendant. All of these pendants are fairly large. This first pendant will be labeled as 1A. I'm going to go ahead and begin by laying out my Play-Doh and rolling it to where it's flat to give me a nice smooth surface to lay out my design. I'm going to go ahead and start laying out my design. Basically all you need is a picture of your design to start laying out your pieces. A lot of times I will preset stones and just play around with them to get a design, and then I'll take a picture of the design with my phone so I'll have it to refer back to whenever I go to lay my design down in Play-Doh. If your design is not symmetrical, you'll have to keep that in mind, that when you're laying it in the Play-Doh, it's going to be the reverse of what you're looking at in the picture. Once you get your design laid out, you want to make sure that it is even. Your larger stones will set up higher than the smaller stones. This will make it level on the front. You just want to make sure that it doesn't curve or sink down or stick up anywhere. And I'm going to go ahead and begin soldering. I use a heat gun and 300-degree solder just so I can use plated settings and not ruin them with a torch. It takes about 30 seconds for the the settings to heat up. Once they start heating up, then it goes fairly fast. And you want to heat the settings, not the wire. If you start heating the wire, you're going to have a mess. And basically, you just push your solder wire down in between your settings. And if there's a little distance, then you will just kind of drag the piece of solder wire over to the other setting. You don't want too much distance, because if there is much distance, then you're going to have a gap there and you're not going to get a connection. So again, as you can see, I am just pushing the solder wire down in between the settings. And everywhere that the settings are touching, you want to make sure you have a connection. And now I'm going to apply the jump ring. I'm going to place it in the third hand, and the opening of the jump ring should be towards the setting. And I'm going to go ahead and apply some heat. And once the setting is hot enough, I am going to apply some solder to the setting and the jump ring. And you want to get a good amount of solder on that, because there's very little connection there. This next pendant will be labeled as 1B in your package. And I've already laid out my Play-Doh, so I am going to start laying out my design. Again, you just need a picture to refer back to lay out your designs. Once you have your piece laid out, then you will just go back and check that all the settings are level and nothing's sticking up or sinking down. And once you've determined that it is level, then you can go ahead and start soldering. You're just going to heat up your settings, and you want to place the solder in all areas where the settings are touching, or at least very close together. I'm going to add a jump ring to this pendant. I'm going to use the third hand, and I want the jump ring's opening to be towards the settings. And this jump ring, I am going to attach it in between the two top navets. Just going to get my settings and my jump ring hot. And once they're hot enough, then I will go ahead and apply a good amount of solder to the settings and the jump ring to get a good connection. This next pendant will be labeled 1C in your package. I've gone ahead and laid out my Play-Doh, and I'm going to begin laying out my settings and stones. I'm going to start with a 16 millimeter in the center, and I'm going to place the pears around the 16 millimeter setting. If you have a picture to refer back to, that always helps. And this is a very simple design. Just lay out your pears around the 16 millimeter setting, and then your navettes will go at the top sides. And I'm going to go ahead and begin applying some heat, and I'm going to add solder that will connect the tips of the pears to the 16 millimeter, and then I will go from side to side on the pears as well. And you want to make sure that you apply solder everywhere that the stones or settings are close together or touching. The more areas that you can solder, the more stable your piece is going to be. I'm going to go ahead and add my jump ring using the third hand. Again, the opening of the jump ring will go towards the settings, and I've applied it in between the two pears that are at the top. And I'm going to heat up the piece and then apply a liberal amount of solder to the settings and the jump ring. This next pendant will be labeled 1D in your package. I've gone ahead and laid out my Play-Doh, and I am going to go ahead and lay down my design. If you have a picture to refer back to, that always helps. Since there are only 5 pieces in this pendant, it's pretty simple to set up. Before I begin soldering, I want to make sure it's level. I'm going to go ahead and apply heat to the settings, and once they're hot enough, I will begin adding the solder, and I will apply the solder to every area that I can where the stones or settings are touching, or at least close to touching. Now that the base of this pendant is done, I'm going to add the jump ring. I'm using a third hand again with the open side of the jump ring towards the setting. On this particular pendant, you really want to get a really good amount of solder onto the jump ring and the setting, because this is going to be soldered to the very tip of that navette, so there's very little connection there. Once you have finished your pendants and removed them from the Play-Doh, you can wash them in some soap and water. Sometimes you may need a pick or a toothpick to get the clay out from the crevices. And for them to dry, you want to turn them down so that no water gets caught between the settings and the stones. A lot of times that can cause the stones to cloud up. And here we have our 4 finished pendants. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.